Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So we've been making awesome progress on both Jared's car, and now we began building the new exhaust for the Supra. So quick update on Jared's car. He requested that we do something cool with the fasteners for the trim rings, as well as putting a coat of black paint on them. So this is what we ended up with. Got some pretty interestingly colored titanium fasteners for both of them. And I put a nice coat of satin black paint on both of the trim rings, and I think that they look awesome. But that's the quick update for Jared's car. And in this episode, we are going to focus on Supra projects. So right here is the new Inconel downpipe that in the previous episode, I got all of this fabricated, and then off camera, I played a little bit with this final section right here. I shortened the straight section up. I eliminated the little bit of a miter angle that was on it just to get me a little bit better outlet location for it, for the titanium turn down, and then for the rest of the exhaust. So before we make any progress with it, or any additional progress, I should say, we need to get this downpipe welded. So it's all ready to go, aside from a final swipe with some acetone to get any fingerprints or oils off of it. So let me clean it off, get it plugged up, get a back purge started on it, and then before long we can strike an arc and start getting this thing converted from multiple pieces into one piece. Few hours and a lot of welding later, and the Inconel downpipe is now all one piece. So here's what we ended up with, and it came out pretty nicely, and I'm quite satisfied with it, and hopefully it still fits, as I have a feeling that some of this stuff moved around a bit, but we'll throw it up in the car here in a minute and check to make sure that it does still all fit. I did the math to figure out the distance that I welded, and it's right around 24 feet worth of welding that I did for this entire part here. So this shop is a 40 by 60, so 40 feet wide and 60 feet long. So if I would have gone from the door over there, I would have welded more than halfway across the shop to weld this piece up. So I always like to do the math whenever I'm doing, especially a large diameter pie cut piece like this, as I always find it interesting to see just how much welding, just how much distance I covered with the torch in my hand. But that being said, let's go ahead, throw this back in the car, and make sure that everything still fits. Fantastic news, everything still fits just the way that I wanted it to. So with the car down now, you can see the nice bend there, how it comes and snakes and flows organically through the engine bay here and puts us in a good location. I'm sure you guys can't see on the camera, maybe down through there, but puts us in a good location for the next portions of the exhaust. So whether it be the titanium turn down or the full titanium exhaust, the outlet of the downpipe is in a perfect location to make either one of those parts happen. So I am very happy with the way that this came out, very happy with the way that it fits, and now that the downpipe is welded, we can move on to the other portions of this exhaust. So the next thing up will be the wastegate recirculations, that and the exhaust mount. I suspect we'll do the exhaust mount first. So if you guys can see in here, maybe, right where my middle finger is there's a threaded hole in the backside of that bracket, and that's what we'll use to mount the exhaust, just the same way that I did with the stainless downpipe. So I'll build a mount. It's very similar to this, and I have some nickel plate that I ordered that arrived today that we'll use to build that. However, it's dark out now. It's been a long day of welding this downpipe, and I'm ready to get out of here for today. So we will reconvene tomorrow and continue making progress on this downpipe, get it wrapped up, and then we can move on to other portions of this exhaust. We are back, and let's go ahead and get this downpipe mounted. So yesterday, I got the downpipe all welded for the Supra, and today we're going to get it mounted. So over here is the piece of nickel sheet that I had ordered. It's 1/8 inch thick, and it should be 6 by 6. And what we're going to do is to make 2 tabs, essentially. One tab that will have the bolt hole in it. The other one will be a support tab. And these two will tie together, much like the tab that I had on the stainless system. So one coming off the bottom, one coming off the side, tee in as close to the bolt hole as it can to provide as much structure and as strong of a tab as we possibly can. So I need to go ahead and get some drafting done, some cutting done, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get to that. And before too long, we'll be able to actually form this mount and get it welded onto the downpipe. The mounting bracket is welded to the Inconel downpipe, and ran into, maybe you could call it an issue, maybe not, something that I had a suspicion that was going to come up as we were doing this. So if you guys can see, maybe get the oil line out of the way. There we go. If you can see right there, the bracket does not line up to our little threaded boss on the on this bracket right here. So I had a suspicion that was going to happen, but I elected to just weld the bracket on, and I can pull that our actual mounting bracket off, cut that back section, modify that actual mounting bracket, as opposed to trying to keep the tab on the Inconel downpipe in its precise location. As things are going to move around, things aren't going to stay where they initially were, and it's just easier to modify that steel bracket than it is to try to make the downpipe mount stay exactly where I wanted it to. So I'll come in and pull this off. I can cut it, modify it, and then reinstall everything, and we should be good to go at that point. Since I have the downpipe out of the car, I figured I'd take a moment to go through the most recent additions to it with you guys. So, if you noticed, I was just putting the O2 bung in, and similar to when I put bungs in titanium, I decided to implement a little brace. So, I welded the bung first to the tube itself, and then one of the nickel washers that I had ordered, I modified it to fit around the O2 bung, and then welded it to the tube into the bung itself. So this is just to increase the surface area that is acting upon the tubing when the bung is, or when the exhaust is in use and the bung is seeing all different forces that it will see when the car is running. So beyond that, we obviously have our exhaust mount, or the downpipe mount, and if you notice, it has two legs to it. So it has this bottom leg here, and it has this upper leg here. So the reason that I wanted to use two legs on it as opposed to just having the bottom tab is you can see all the surface area of weld that we have around this top one here, and we have some surface area around the bottom side there. So between having that much more surface area, again, acting upon the tube in dynamic use of this piece, and I was the location that this bar or this strip ties into the lower strip is also very important. If you notice, I got it as close as I felt comfortable to where I actually have the bolt hole placed on this lower strip right here, and that is to prohibit any additional material on the hole side that could bend or could flex or anything else when this thing is being used dynamically again. So all things to consider when you're building a part like this, and it can pay dividends as you're actually putting something like this into service, as you really want it to stay together for the long haul. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and throw this tube back in the car, as at this point everything minus the wastegate recirculations is done on this exhaust, or the downpipe rather. So let's throw it in the car, see what it looks like, and we can start moving forward with the wastegate recirculations probably tomorrow. With the downpipe now installed, everything fits the way it needs to. Everything is as sturdy as it needs to be. Still have very easy access to get in and loosen the mount fastener down there when I need to. The O2 sensor fits onto the bung, or fits into the bung without any issue. So this was a great success. Now, we're just about done for today, but there is one last thing that I would like to do before I take off for the day and have to wait a few hours until I come back tomorrow. So this right here is a piece of 2-inch Inconel that I have left over from when I built the header. And this just so happens to be the correct size for one of the wastegate dump tubes, or for the wastegate dump tubes rather. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half with a fairly aggressive miter cut. And I'm going to use this piece to make the 2 wastegate inlets into the downpipe. Now we're not going to actually cut the holes in the downpipe and all of that right now, but I would like to get at least the 2 sections, the 2 inlet sections of it cut and made and prepped, and probably even weld them to the V-bands. So I guess let's not talk about it, let's be about it. So let's go ahead, make this cut, and we can start moving forward with this portion. Both the wastegate inlets for the downpipe are welded, and I wanted to take just a quick moment to talk about different positioning when you're welding. So I'll refer to this as the angle of attack as I'm going in here and welding. So this one, the angle that I chose was sitting straight up and down like this. And I'm not sure if you guys can see or not, as GoPro doesn't do the best with close-up detail shots. But the start stops are not the greatest. There's a little bit of wiggliness to them, and it just isn't exactly the aesthetics that I was looking for. Now, I still was able to achieve penetration, and this is still a perfectly sound weld joint, but the aesthetics do leave a little bit to be desired. Now, conversely, if we look at the other provision, my angle of attack was with it laid down like so. And if you notice, there's much better uniformity, much less wiggliness with the start stops, and there actually is a little bit better penetration as well. So I'm a right-handed welder, meaning that the torch stays in my dominant hand or my right hand. And I prefer to choose this angle of attack when I'm welding any V-bands like this together, as not only am I directing a little bit more heat at the tube that I'm actually welding, but I have a better line of sight to the actual liquid metal puddle, and the angle that my torch hand is at, I feel as though I have better control of the puddle and all the nuances of the welding process. So just a little bit of food for thought. It may work better one way or another for you, but that's what works best for me, and that's what I prefer to do. So we are wrapped up here for today. So tomorrow we'll come back in and we can focus on getting these 2 wastegate provisions put onto the downpipe, and from there we can go ahead and build the Inconel recirculation tubes. So I'll see you guys then, and we'll keep this train rolling down the tracks. With the sound of the rain pitter-pattering on the metal roof of the shop, let's go ahead and wrap up this Inconel downpipe. So yesterday, the final thing that we did was make the actual wastegate provisions, or the recirculation provisions, that will go onto the downpipe. So today we need to locate those on the downpipe, or I guess we need to cope them so they'll fit on the tubing, locate them on the downpipe, cut holes, weld them, And at that point in time, we will be ready, I guess, to make the actual recirculation tubes. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and I don't really need to do too much talking, or too much more talking about it. So let's go ahead and cope them, and then figure out where they will fit on here, and go from there. With the addition of the wastegate recirculation provisions, the Supra's Inconel downpipe is completed. So here is what we ended up with. And we have the new Inconel piece on the left and the old stainless piece on the right. So the one last thing that I want to do in this episode is weigh the two parts. Now I can tell just by holding them that the Inconel piece is significantly lighter than the stainless one. But how much lighter? So let's go take these parts over to the scale, put them on there, and we'll see exactly what the weight savings ended up being. All right, so we are in the office where my shipping scale is, and you'll have to excuse the noise from the vending machine, but let's go ahead and weigh these two pieces. So we'll start off with the stainless one, and here we are. And this might not be perfect, as I'll have to balance this, but looks like we're somewhere 15 pounds 4 ounces, 15 pounds 6 ounces, something right around there. So going from that now to the Inconel piece, let's see what we ended up saving. And you can see obviously the scale is zeroed in between the two pieces. £10, 10 ounces. So we saved roughly 5 pounds just by switching materials on the downpipe. And in looking at these two pieces, it looks like the Inconel downpipe is actually a little bit longer than the stainless one, or it used more material. So more material, less weight, and that just goes to show the beauty of thinner wall thicknesses, and you can get away with using thinner wall thicknesses on superior alloys. After all of that, the Supra's Inconel downpipe is installed, the bumper's back on, and the car is back to normal. So again, looking at it through here, here's where we ended up for the actual recirculation provisions. So these give a real nice path to run up to the actual wastegate outlets, and I'll more than likely build the dump tubes in a similar fashion to the way that they were built before, but maybe with a few odd twists and turns and so on and so forth, as I'm starting with a blank slate again. But the downpipe is done. I'm very happy with how it came out, and you can see just through this air dam right here, the downpipe peeking through. And like I said, most people may not understand what it is or may not care, but for those few that do get it, it's a big deal. So very happy with how this came out, and That's going to be about the end of this episode. So thank you guys as always for tuning in and watching things that I'm really excited for, like this come together. And I am absolutely stoked to get going on the rest of this exhaust. But we have enough, we accomplished enough in this episode where more progress will have to wait for the next one. So with that being said, that'll be the end of this episode. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode.